9? Is it 9?
Near.
Says,
Got 30 seconds.
mine says about 30 seconds.
Recording in progress.
He says go ahead.
Good morning, everyone. This is the August 17th meeting of the Facilities and Infrastructure Committee. We'll start out with changes to the agenda. We're going to add some PAR forms that the administration has asked us to do. They're on folks' desks. We've also been asked by our chair to add 2 resolutions having to do with the Red House at 408 North Tioga Street, and I've submitted a revised version of one of those. Jeff Smith is serving on the interview committee for the position of Director of Weights and Measures, and he's asked if his report could be moved up so he can make those interview sessions this morning. And I told him we would do that after privilege of the floor. Any other changes to the agenda this morning? Not seeing any. Let's go on to a public comment. This is the opportunity for the public to speak to the Facilities and Infrastructure Committee. And we'd ask you to limit your comments to about 3 minutes. I have 1 blue card, but there may be other folks, and I know there are folks on the Zoom this morning. I have Herb Eggman. Herb, do you want to start?
Thank you. Good morning. Yes, Herb Eggman. I live in the town of Ithaca, and I'm here representing the Forest Home Improvement Association. We were very disappointed to learn that a news release had gone out that we read in the Ithaca Voice saying that the county was going to abandon the memorandum of understanding with the town of Ithaca and with Cornell regarding the realignment of the Craddock Lane Pleasant Grove Road intersection. The news release says the assessment found that the current alignment, the assessment was a new traffic study, that the current alignment is preferred by most motorists. Well, yeah, that's what we've been saying for 20 years. The problem is that the intersection directs people straight into Forest Home rather than directing them into Cornell, which is where a lot of them are going, especially commuter traffic. So we're disappointed in that, one, the decision doesn't reflect the needs of the community, only the needs of motorists. Yet we have a lot of commuters to Cornell that go by bike, by foot, by now the electric assisted devices. So now they can get up the steep hills of Forest Home where they couldn't before. So we have an increase of those plus the increase in traffic, and it results in a very dangerous situation. Also, everything in this process has been backwards. This news release came when, at this last meeting of this body, we were told that the report on the traffic would come back to here first before anything was done. So I don't understand what the process is if committees aren't doing what they're obviously designed to do. Beyond that, it was announced there's going to be another joint study between the town and the county on the intersection, which is great. I mean, we welcome that. But then why was the decision made via news release to get out of the MOU before the new information was available? None of this makes any sense. So we are asking that this committee recommend to the county legislature that the MOU be continued and that staff be directed to select one of the alternatives for redirecting traffic at Craddock Lane and Pleasant Grove Road. We know that physical configuration means something. The town of Ithaca put raised traffic bumps in Forest Home a few years ago. that reduced speed dramatically, and it helped us get out of our driveways and get our mail from our mailboxes without risking getting hit by speeding automobiles. So sometimes it's necessary to change the physical configurations in order to get motorists to behave responsibly. So we're asking this committee to take that action, and let's go through this process properly and get that intersection realigned. It's already paid for. Cornell has the money set aside. It's the will to get it done. Thank you very much.
Thank you for your comment. Others in the chamber would like to speak to us this morning. All right, let's go to online. I have Bruce Britton.
Yeah, Doug and I both want. Do you want to go first?
Oh,
Well, sure.
We can take
Okay,
Doug
I'll
first.
go first. Bruce can go next. Hi, everybody. Good morning. I'm Doug Britton. I'm not really convinced that these little 3-minute presentations work that well. I think what works better is a conversation, a discussion with the public and the committee about like what intersection designs should be investigated and what are the advantages and disadvantages of each. And I think that would be a better way to develop something which would actually work and achieve the desired purpose and in fact the mandated purpose. Cornell was a little secretive, I'm afraid, in what it was developing. It shared publicly the traffic circle, or a roundabout, whatever you want to call it, which looked like it would work pretty well. But then they apparently went ahead and also did some sort of T intersection type things, and those were sort of kept secret. There's one in your packet, which we had never seen before. I don't know if you'd ever seen it before, but it with a turn lane and stuff, and it looks pretty awkward. I'm not thrilled with it. And they had a similar one, which they gave to the town, but again, didn't show the public, but it had a little slip road, and that didn't look like it would work real well either. So if Jeff doesn't really like either of those last two intersections, I don't blame him. I don't really like them either. But it doesn't mean that you can't have a good design there. Traffic circle or something else, a T intersection that would work. So I think what we have to keep in mind is what we are trying to do here. If all you do is just take, narrowly look at the intersection and say, does the current alignment work for current traffic flow? Yes, it does. Oh, okay, let's keep it. Then you're missing the point. What we are trying to do is create a smooth traffic corridor. Enters Cornell to get Cornell from the north, comes down Pleasant Grove, swings onto Credit Farm Drive, swings on to Thurston Ave at the other end, goes across the bridge. There it is, Central Campus. Community corners all the way to Central Campus, no turning, no stopping. It avoids all the turning and stopping that currently happens at Forest Home. It avoids all the turning and stopping that currently happens in Cornell Heights. It's better for traffic. It's certainly better for the communities, as Herb already pointed out. So how do we create that? What intersection design would facilitate traffic smoothly going onto and off Credit Farm Drive? Step one, obviously, was to recognize the situation. Step two was to build Credit Farm Drive. Happened 20 years ago. Step three is redo the intersection at the town end. That's what the MOU mandates. Step four is to redo the intersection at the city end of Credit Farm Drive. And then you've got your nice corridor. That's what we should keep in mind. We can do it. The public is a resource that I hope the committee takes advantage of. Some of us are actually familiar with the intersection, familiar with the traffic. There are several engineers around. We can provide assistance, and I think that if we put our minds to it and we all work together, we can come up with something that would work as is required. And I look forward to that process working successfully. And thank you. Now I'll let Bruce go.
Thanks for your comments.
Thank you.
Bruce?
Yeah, thank you. I find, to my surprise, that I agree with the previous two speakers. And again, I'm going to address that intersection. The MOU, which I hope you've all seen by now, just to read from it, Cornell, the county, and the town hereby reaffirm their collective desire to realign the intersection of Credit Farm Drive and Pleasant Grove Road to direct traffic more readily to the Cornell campus. Fairly simple. County Highway's role, as spelled out, is to facilitate that, that process. It's not to design the new intersection. That's Cornell's task. It's not to say it isn't necessary, because it is necessary, and the powers that be have already decided that. Highway's role is just to make sure that it happens. As far, we have seen now 3 different designs that Cornell's consultants have come up with. The T intersections were problematic. I mean, they realigned Pleasant Grove to Craddock Farm, which was good, but then they gave priority to that new road. And that necessitated the turn lanes, the slip roads, the merge lanes. It's a messy, complicated, which is what Doug was just trying to address. An all-way stop would make for a much simpler and safer T intersection. An all-way go, the traffic circle, a roundabout, made a lot of sense. If Cornell has not come up with a good design yet, it doesn't mean that there are no good designs to be had. Doug and I are both engineers. We're happy to help any way that we can. And we just urge you, like Herb was saying, let's go ahead and get this done. And thank you.
Thank you for your comments. We had one other person sign up. Have we heard from that person? That was Linda Kottman. If she does show up, I'll afford her an opportunity to speak to us. I'm going to forego the chair's report this morning, and we're going to move to highway. Jeff, you want to join us up here?
Sure, thank you.
Good
I really
morning.
appreciate getting moved up on the agenda greatly. So the discussion item today is the Pleasant Grove Craddock Farm intersection. And although I do believe Mr. Bruce and Doug Britton have told a very accurate story as far as how it's evolved and some of that things, and I do agree with them that I do not like the T intersection and the design. To step back and to kind of tell the story, sometime around 2017, 2018, we were asked to attend a meeting with Cornell and town of Ithaca to consider an MOU and the realignment of this intersection. As the MOU states, that's what came out of that meeting and that decision. One part that is important, and there's a long time delay, is that there's the COVID pandemic is in the middle of that, so really greatly extended all of this. I don't think a lot of work and exchanges were done during that time frame. So it's true that originally and conceptually, and there were shared plans that appeared to have a traffic circle design, taking into account the flow of traffic. The county had never really made a decision or were asked to make a decision on that design. When it came to the county and when it came across through the highway department for any feedback or input, where I kept going very specifically was that whatever design you come with, the next step is right of way, because there's a lot of right of way, various ownerships, how that would look, and some a fairly in-depth long phase of property ownership mapping, fee, who's going to own what, MOUs and things, and basically what we're going to construct. So outside of that, that's all that I really heard from regarding a fairly long, multiple year period of time. Sometime in the middle of 2022, late summer, the decision was the design had shifted to the T intersection. We looked at that. There was various, as we've already heard just now, various looks or designs that came out of that T intersection. Last fall, during that time frame, it came to light the basis of the decisions or the opinions, I'll say, not decisions, from here forward that I've felt is that the T intersection just doesn't really serve the purpose and the goal of what's in the MOU, and that I don't believe that it's going to readily divert traffic away from Forest Home. Looking at the traffic counts, and that is by this exactly the subject that I've based all my opinions on, is that the majority of traffic is going along Pleasant Grove down into Forest Home or coming out of Forest Home, and there is a smaller portion of the traffic that actually decides to go down into campus on Craddock Farm Road. We were provided traffic counts from the study done by Labella through Cornell. We also, I'm pretty sure everyone's aware, we also did our own traffic counts. I can speak to our traffic counts. We just did en masse traffic counts, bulk traffic, 24-hour-a-day, week-long studies. Those numbers, and to make it easiest to explain those numbers rather than share the big, large numbers of the total traffic for that period of time, if you look at it from a ratio standpoint, the ratio is at different times, we've been provided 4-to-1, 5-to-1, and 6-to-1 at different times of year for different traffic studies. The 4 is the number of cars that is traveling Pleasant Grove, coming and going down into Forest Home, and the 1 car would be the one making the turn going down Craddock Farm. Based on those ratios, I feel that that is the preferred choice of the traveling public, and that's where I'm deciding on that opinion. The T intersection and the concept that why I reject it is that the T intersection forces the larger majority of cars to make that decision, to make a traffic movement, to come to a stop, to make it turn on their signal light, to make a left-hand and a right-hand turn that is not happening now. And the 1 car of those ratios, it's not singular car, but that smaller side of the ratio is going to be easily traveling to and from campus. If you did a traffic study and you found as a design as a T intersection, you found that to be true, you would go back to the design that you're in now. You would go to the preferred and the majority of the way traffic are moving. I don't feel that there's that larger amount of that large amount or that higher side of the ratio that those people, number one, don't know where they're going. They're going to destinations. They're following the closest path to get to where they're going, and they're deciding not to take the turn and go down Craddock Farm. If we'd have found that in our studies, then the T intersection then would have held true, and that would be how we're proceeding. I kind of skipped over it. The rearrangement of the traffic as that T intersection and making people stop, it worries me that we're introducing that isn't existing now. And I think that it could safely be said that you're going to actually degenerate safety in that area by forcing people to make those traffic movements that they aren't making now. There's going to be, all different scenarios. Obviously, those actual numbers aren't known or statistics aren't known, but I feel like it's a degradation of safety to go to a T intersection in that situation, forcing the larger side of the ratio to make those traffic movements. I'm fine with questions. I don't know that I've covered. I know I've talked with a lot of you.
What you've done is very helpful, Jeff.
Okay.
You've given us the background. In the past, the committee only learned that there was this idea that we'd keep it the same. So this is helpful, at least to me. I can't speak for the other members, but knowing that. And we do have the MOU in our packet. I, for one, have read it. And I've heard folks from the town of Ithaca, I'm sorry, not from the town of Ithaca, who live in the town of Ithaca, I should say, speak about it. And I'm not personally ready to make any comments about that. We perhaps will need advice of counsel, but I don't know. Do others have comments? Randy?
Yes, thanks, Jeff. Yeah, I've read the MOU, so it's good to have that and understand that better. I actually like roundabouts. They put one on Route 13 in Newfield, and although it's got some issues, it's better than it was. And much more difficult on a high-speed highway, I think, than a slower speed one like that. But you will have complications, I'm sure, of that. But if in the MOU, it says that Cornell is responsible for the cost of whatever is done there, is it, even if it's a roundabout?
Yeah, that's how I would understand that, yeah. There was to be, it's also stated in the MOU that there is no cost to the county for any kind of restructuring or rebuilding or realigning the intersection.
And I'm a little confused on the release that was sent out. Was that just a timing issue? That we were going out of the MOU, is that true? Or Mr. Engman mentioned that.
I think it was after Jeff explained to us that his position was that we didn't recommend a change in the intersection.
Okay, so I think it's changed our thoughts a little bit on that since then, that we're still considering the MOU, correct?
Well, the MOU is being talked about, yes.
Okay, we're not canceling it or anything, it's just a question on that.
Deborah?
Yeah, as I read the MOU, the only party that can really cancel the realignment of the intersection is Cornell. They explicitly have the right to not follow through on this agreement. And I don't think the county saying one way or another would obviate the entire MOU because there are three parties to that MOU.
Right.
I think, though, under the circumstances, we ought to consult legal counsel and figure out where we stand with this, which is not to say I don't appreciate Jeff's evaluation of the situation.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions? Okay. Jeff, anything else from your department?
As you said earlier, Weights and Measures, we're starting interview process, so hopefully we have that position filled very soon. We find a successful
You have a number of
candidate.
applicants?
We did have a pretty good number, I think 6 or 7 applicants. We have 5 interviews, 6 interviews, 5, 3, yeah, 5. Norma's also attending. And I'm going to stick around. We do have a few minutes for the capital update.
Well, we're pleased to have you stay.
Thank you. Thanks for moving me up.
One other change to the agenda I wanted to mention is on my transportation report later in the agenda, I'm going to defer that and let Dwight Mengel show us 3 or 4 slides that he's brought along to talk about a little bit of history in transportation. Let's go to Lisa Holmes for the County Administrator report.
Thank you, Mike. I have a couple of brief updates before the presentation and resolutions. One, I wanted to, there had been some question, I believe it was in this committee, about the status of the ownership of the monuments in DeWitt Park. And it was kind of an all hands on deck. Many thanks to the clerk of the legislature for her review of this, and after looking at several historical documents, I don't know that we have established ownership, but we did establish there is a maintenance agreement between the City of Ithaca and the Presbyterian Church that dates back to the 1800s, 1826 or 1856. I couldn't read the cursive. In 1922 and 23, the county contributed a total of $20,000 to erect a World War I memorial. And in 1976, the county and the city both contributed to a memorial to honor Korean and Vietnam War veterans. The total of that was $5,000, and the county contributed $3,000. But
Did you find anything about the World War II monument?
No, did not. So that's the sum and substance of it. I did not find anything establishing ownership. And again, the maintenance of the park is the city of Ithaca. So that's that piece. And then the second, and again, having to do with veterans, I just wanted to make the committee aware of the space in the Human Services Annex that is occupied by the Veterans Services Office. They are now unable in the current configuration and space with the addition of staff. They are needing to reconfigure space to adequately address the public coming in and accommodate 2 additional staff. So in working with the facilities department, they are going to be occupying temporary space in the rear part of the Human Services Annex. Currently, grand jury has been meeting there for a few hours every Thursday morning, I believe. So grand jury is now looking for alternate space, and I think they are considering temporary space in the basement of the county courthouse. So I just wanted to make the committee aware of those configurations that are now happening.
That would be very temporary space.
Yes, yes. So, and
The basement of the county courthouse is finished space down there.
Yeah, but my point is that we can't count on that for an indefinite period of time.
No, that's true. Sorry. Please.
those are my 2 updates. I have a couple of briefer resolutions or just an update as well before going into the PAR forms if we wanted to take those. I see Ben is here from the History Center for the second resolution.
Ben Sandberg, good morning.
Good morning. Thanks for having me.
Okay, let's get it on the table. Someone want to move it? This is resolution to authorize 10-year lease agreement between the County of Tompkins and the History Center. That's 11871. Someone, Randy's moving it. Is there a second? Seconded by Deborah. Ben, do you want to talk to us about it?
Yeah, so this is a bit longer than the rental agreements between the other parties in the building. I came to Lisa and the facilities team because the past couple of years, and the message to me in the next couple of years is that there will be expanded funding in Governor Hochul's New York State budget for supporting capital projects for the arts. And that I was unable to apply last year because the funding requirements either have to have applicants either having ownership of the building or a long-term lease. I understand it from the state's point of view. They don't want to put money into a building for an arts organization, and then in 2 years, all of a sudden that building's being used for another purpose. And so really my hope here of being able to have a much longer lease was for us to be able to go after some funding that the county is not eligible to apply for, but we as a museum are, and bring it to be able to support the facilities team and support the actual infrastructure of our home here.
Lisa, you want to add anything to that?
The only thing I would add is after a discussion with Arel, our facilities director, he confirmed that there are a number of projects in the future that would need to take place in the building, including HVAC, new roof, and elevator modernization, any of which we would welcome state funding to support.
Deborah.
I'm assuming that we're going to continue this lease on the current terms, so could you remind me what the current terms are?
Specifically, what do you mean terms?
Well, as I vaguely recall, your providing property management services.
Oh, yep. Yeah. Sorry about that. Yeah, so we're extending the operating agreement that was put into place last January. There is in that operating agreement, that either party has the ability to come to the table to renegotiate if need be. I guess I would say, like, I've been really happy and feel like we have a great working relationship between Harrell, Alan, Dana, the rest of the facility folks here, and then with Lisa. So I didn't hear in our regular budget meetings from Lisa or the team that there were things on their end, on the county's end, that needed to be addressed for managing the property, and I don't feel that way from our end. So I think the intention here was to continue that signed operating agreement. So you bring up a great point that now the timing of both the rental and then the managing the building, those are on different timelines now, and so maybe it does make sense to sync those two agreements up.
It may, but I just want to be sure I understand. The rent you pay is your services as the property manager.
Right.
And then the subtenants or whatever pay rent, and that flows through to the county.
Well, it flows through to offset the expenses for the building.
Right.
And yes, and prior to the History Center moving into the Center for History and Culture, the county had been paying for the History Center's rent wherever they were. So we're no longer paying for their rent. They are essentially rent-free in the Center for History and Culture, but they are providing a very important service for us in terms of the management of all of the tenants, leases, and facilities.
Thank you.
I certainly support this. I guess I'm just surprised that there isn't already a lease.
We have a current lease. It's a 5-year lease. So this is
needs
just
to be a longer-term lease.
to be yes, to be eligible for these state grants.
That makes sense. Okay. Any other discussion? Ready to vote? Those in favor? Those opposed? That's unanimous. Okay, that's going to happen, Ben. Thanks for coming.
No, of course. Thank you all for the ongoing work and partnership. It's very much appreciated from our end.
Did you want to go to the recommendation to consider physical fitness?
Sure.
Okay.
I'd be happy to. That's another just brief update item, and that is also going to the Public Safety Committee. And I see Mona is here from the Community Justice Center. Mona, did you want to speak to this recommendation?
Hi, thanks, Lisa. Good morning, everyone.
Good morning.
The actual memo was in your packet. I think what I have to say or add to it is that this is just something that came up repeatedly when we worked with the working group, which is stakeholders from the Sheriff's Department, IPD, a bunch of other entities that have to do with the doer and emergency responders. And it's something that's dear to them. It's important to them, their physical fitness. I mean, studies have shown that, your physical wellness really plays a role in how well you're able to do your job. We all realize that the CJC doesn't have the funding or the financial means to build a gym. So our working group came to the conclusion that we were going to go ahead and this would be our way of advocating for something of this nature to take place for the City of Ithaca, IPD, and Tompkins County Sheriff's Department.
Okay, do we have
And I am happy to answer any questions.
questions from the committee? I guess your memo has explained it.
Perfect. Thank you.
Thank you for being with us, Mona.
You're welcome.
Want to go right to the par forms?
Thank you, sure. So.
Norma's got things for us to look at.
Great. So these are the series of project approval request forms that we take into account as we consider the capital program, and this is the compilation of them. for the departments that report directly to facilities and infrastructure, starting with the airport. So I would invite Roxanne and Josh, if you want to come to the table to speak to any of these projects or questions that come up on any of these projects.
May I ask a general question?
Sure.
Is this just a briefing to the committee? We're not voting on these.
We'll be voting on the capital project.
We'll be voting on the capital project as part of the budget process.
Yes.
Yeah,
Yes.
okay.
So
So
this
this
is briefing.
is just a briefing. Okay,
Yep.
thank you.
Opportunity to ask questions and for the departments to
If I
provide
could
explanation.
editorialize just for a second, I can remember before we had the PAR forms, and we'd have issues where we'd be thought a project was ready to go and we hadn't done X, or we hadn't gone through finance, or it hadn't gone through public works back then, or something. So the idea of these PAR forms came forward so that all the different entities that have responsibility with respect to a capital project sign off before the legislature says, go ahead and build.
And I think another piece of history that Norma was the architect of the PAR forms. So,
That's probably true.
okay, so starting with the airport, we have, well, do you want to walk us through, Roxanne or Josh, these?
So we can start off, so this.
Roxanne, I'm sorry to interrupt. Thank you.
Got it. So this is just something, so our capital projects are, we go through the FAA for an airport capital improvement program. They look at things, you know, what needs to be done, what we have to do in a certain time frame, what the funding is, and then we move forward from there. They get plugged in by year, you know, and some of them are mandated, some of them have to be done, you know, quickly, some of them can be pushed out. So this is where we are at right now with the ACIP, with the FAA, are the forms that we put in. So this project is purchasing of snow removal equipment, blower, broom. I'm going to defer to Josh because he can explain more about that and the needs and what it would mean.
Yeah, so the FAA requires every 10 to 15 years your snow equipment be cycled out. So it would be replacing, this vehicle here would be replacing a 2007 broom blower combination unit. So it's met its FAA time.
That would clean my driveway real fast.
Yep.
And this is actually a 2025 project.
I'm sorry?
I saw Randy with his hand.
Oh, I'm sorry, Randy, I didn't see your hand. Go ahead.
Yeah, thank you. As I read this, and you just said it's a replacement, but it says here that it's an additional piece of equipment, so it would actually replace a piece of equipment?
Yeah, it'll be a replacement.
Okay. And what happens to the old one? Do you sell it typically, or?
Yeah, usually try to sell it if we can make money. If it's something that we think we can use for parts, that type of stuff. Depends what kind of shape it's in.
Okay.
Right now, the blower broom that we have, we can probably use as a backup because we don't have a backup blower at the time. So everything that we do on the airport is all done by time limit. So every 30 minutes, we have to do our priority ones. 1 inch of snow an hour, we have to clear that every 30 minutes. And it all goes by how much snowblower performance we have. So really, we're lacking on the snowblower performance because we only have one. So if we have one that goes down, we're kind of in trouble, right? So this would be, if we have a spot to put the other one, we'll probably use it as a backup for the time being until we can get allocated for another unit down the road.
Number two.
Josh, if you want to go on this one.
This one. This is a structural piece of equipment, structural fire piece of equipment. As we all know, we have the fire service on the airport. The vehicles are getting extremely large for the aircraft rescue and firefighting side of it, but we also cover our buildings, the terminal. Being the FAA put money into the terminal, they have recommended us to replace our 1988 structural truck that we purchased from a volunteer fire department that was close by for a reasonable price 6 or 7 years ago. What this will do is allow us to respond out front of the terminal, car fires, anything like that, motor vehicle accidents. We think it won't ever happen, but we have actually had motor vehicle accidents in the parking lot where we had to cut people out. So it does happen. Weird things happen in parking lots for some reason. So this is just a replacement, again, replace a 1988 vehicle that the FAA has recommended.
Questions? Greg?
Yeah, just so I'm clear and anybody else following along is the county's portion is the PFC line essentially, correct?
Correct. So right now, yes, we are struggling collecting PFCs. This is PFC eligible. So this will go into a PFC application, and as we collect PFCs, it'll be longer to be able to collect them, but we will reimburse the county any coverage that they've done, or if the projects that are maybe 3 years down the road, we'll have the PFCs to cover immediately. So that's kind of where we're at with that. So it'll go into an application. It is PFC eligible. It will be reimbursed to the county when the PFCs are collected and when we get additional flights and increase the passengers. I'm not saying if, because I'm a positive person. I'm saying when.
Got it. Okay. Thank you.
Yep. I can cover some of this and then maybe defer to Josh on this one if there's no other questions on the other. The canopy. So this project is something that was kind of frustrating. We had a new canopy installed with the UAI grant. There's been issues with the new canopy. So we're looking at the issues there, but we're also looking at adding some stuff. We're working with CNS and with planning on doing an initial bill funding grant that's competitive so that we can update the canopy now that we have, add some additional electric charging stations and solar panels, and also a battery station within the terminal to help for backup as well. So this is something that we're looking at doing kind of as a joint effort to cover a lot of things that we think will be beneficial for the long term at the airport.
As I recall, the canopy was really required by New York State.
That is
By
correct.
Governor Cuomo, as a matter of fact.
Some of us like the old canopy, but
Josh is nodding very vigorously right there. So we all do, and it was something that we're now dealing with. So it can be a safety issue, so that's something that we're trying to with the snow sliding off. Other airports have also run into this. We're not the only ones with these canopies that were mandated to be put in. So hopefully this will fix that problem, plus also give us additional structural support.
Randy.
This isn't something that's mandated by the FAA. It's something that we desire to do.
Correct. It's not a mandate through the FAA for this. It's something that we're looking at doing through other opportunities as well, with other funding through the competitive bill funding. So it's another grant process that we can apply for and use.
Thank you.
Yep. If there's no other questions, we can move on to the master plan and pavement management plan. So this is something we had done back in 2012. We were actually the first airport to have a green sustainable master plan back in 2012. So this is something that the FAA does require because it looks at all, what's happening at the airport, what needs to be improved, and also planning into that the pavement management plan, looking at the current status of our pavement, all of our pavement, what needs to be updated, what needs to be changed, what needs to be redone. And the master plan looks at, where we're going in the future. Kind of, it gives a snapshot of where we are at this time and then what we need to do over the next 5, 10, 15 years, and it lays it out like that. The obstruction study and removal. This is something that we've had on our ACIP for quite a while. We've moved it back, and I'm going to let Josh talk to this one.
All right. So every year when we do our inspection, the FAA will actually look at the obstructions off the departure and approach ends of each runway. Of course, trees grow over years of time, so there has to be a full-scale study and obstruction removal project, being that the trees are actually coming up into the path, the flight path of the aircraft. So this will take care of those issues and hopefully, slow them down for another 10 or 15 years.
That's something we've done before, is that correct?
Yep. So the next one is the Taxiway Alpha parallel taxi rehabilitation. Again, this is another thing that was laid out in the previous master plan and pavement replacement by inspection. So we're going back down through Alpha to do rehabilitation on areas that need to be taken care of. This one, is this the ski hall one?
Josh said ski hall. I want that marked down, please, in the minutes.
Yeah, we have some other projects coming up in the future that the FAA changed requirements. You can't have a direct access from a ramp or an apron area to the runway. So we're going to have to do some shifts of the taxiways between the runway and Taxiway Alpha, so an aircraft can't drive straight from an apron onto the runway. So there's no excursions from the aircraft going on the runway when somebody's landing. So this is just replacement of pavement coming down through Taxiway Alpha.
No questions, I can move on to the next one, the passenger baggage claim. Our current baggage carousel was put in 1994. It's in desperate need of replacement. So we've already, we did the expansion too, so this is something that we just really need to look at and get it replaced so it's in better working order. It's starting to age, parts are harder to come by, and I believe this one we're looking at getting put out to bid this year, and then and going from there just to see what the bids come back at, see where we're at.
Randy has his hand.
Mike, Randy has a question.
Randy, I'm watching the screen, so holler out.
That's okay. So I'm looking at this, and it says there's no expense in '24 or beyond. Is this part of the capital plan? It just haven't been filled in yet, or?
Yeah, I had made a note, and I was going to mention it. There are a couple of projects. This had been in last year's capital plan for 2023, and so we're expecting that the expenditure will take place in 2023, and this will not be in the 2024 capital plan. So this is more or less an update on that project.
So something you think you can complete this year, then?
We're hoping to be able to get the grant through this year, the quotes through. We may, and the bids in this year, impossible construction this year. It just all depends really on timing. So this is a kind of in a limbo, but we're hoping the bids should be out and back soon. We're constantly in comments with the FAA, so fingers crossed that we can do it this year.
And that the price comes in, right?
And that the price comes in, right? That's always
today's world, right?
Yeah.
Okay. Thank you.
Yep. I'll let Josh take the next one.
I'm
GA
sorry,
rehab.
I'm sorry, but I've got to say, thank you for the picture. Our terminal is pretty handsome. Unfortunately, a lot of that handsomeness is covered up by that canopy.
Noted.
I just want to quickly, this question came up yesterday. The LTD is live to date. That just means what has been spent up to 2023. So if there's been funding that's already been approved previously, that live to date is what's included in that figure.
It's been budgeted. It's not
been-
necessarily been spent.
Exactly. It's been budgeted, it's been approved, but not necessarily spent. Exactly. Yep.
So the rehab of general aviation, or GA construction on the ramp, this was going to be tied in with the taxiway Phase 3 project. They've had to split some things up, so we're hoping to separate that project and taking care of some water issues out in front of Taganic Aviation. There's some water underground piping that was there long before me, and they are starting to sink the ramp. So we're just trying to get that cleaned up before we have issues with aircraft hitting the ruts.
Are you going to do the safety building now?
There's the one additional that was not in the packet but is on the desks, and that was the RFSRE building.
So I can talk a little bit about this, and I'll also defer to Josh a lot on this. RFSRE building. So back in 2018, after the FAA did their initial, their Part 139 inspection, it was determined that a need was for a new building. And we did a feasibility study back in 2018, which was $145,000, covered 90% federal, 5 and 5. Then in 2021, we did the design project that was covered. Anything that was AIP eligible was covered 100% by the FAA during the COVID. So the ARF portion was 87% AIP eligible, and the SRE portion was 80% eligible. The total project for the design was $995,000. So the AIP eligible share was $828,000, and then the rest remaining came from our airport fund balance. So this was back in 2021. So we were still working on the design, but as you all know, we were in the midst of COVID. Everything got crazy, not only just what was happening with our loss of passengers, but the price of everything. So then we moved into, looking at site work. And when we started talking about the projects in the last 2 years, I'm looking at them and I'm like, there was no way that I was going to come to the ledge and ask for money. We'd already bonded $11.8 million. So I'm like, okay, we're going to push this off. We talked with the FAA and said, we can't right now. We can't do this. We can't foreseeably see this happening. So we put it on the back burner. We know eventually, sure, this is something that will need to be done. But at that time, I said, right now we have other things that we need to focus on. So that's kind of where we're at with this project. And I don't think that there's anything that we can do in the near future because of the cost, because of it not being. First of all, the project's not 100% AIP covered. So even though AIP is 90%, the full project isn't that. There's some portions of the project that don't fall under the FAA guidelines for being covered as an AIP project. Defer to Josh if he can add anything additional.
You probably hit it all, so.
So that's kind of where we're at. And the prices have increased. With the cost of building supplies. We're not sure, we've talked to the FAA. They understand our point of view that right now, this isn't something that we can afford, $4 million, $3 million, $2 million, whatever it is. Because we don't even know exactly what the cost will be until we can really get a full design in. But, so this is kind of something where I said I can't foresee doing it at this time.
Deborah, then Shauna.
Okay, thank you. I want to be clear up front. I'm not questioning the necessity for any of these projects, but I want to circle back to a topic that Greg's question touched on. Excluding the safety building, you've got 9 projects, and you're counting on a total of $2,196,200 in PFCs over the 5 years of the upcoming capital plan. I've got real problems with that, and I think they relate to the fact that, as I understand it, since 1992 through 2018, we've only been approved for $8,990,000 in PFCs. And I gather we've collected $875,000 of that. We've still got $800,000 in projects that we're supposed to be using the PFCs that have already been approved and upcoming PFCs. In 2021, we only collected $209,000 in PFCs. Now, these are the same PFCs that we're supposed to pay that bond. And I think that I appreciate your optimism, but I think that these projections are unrealistic. If we ever get this money back, it's going to be years down the road, and I just want everyone to understand that we're going to be fronting these additional funds unless and until the PFCs come in. So just for the sake of transparency.
Shauna?
Yeah, I just wanted to bring to the attention of the committee that we have submitted a request using congressionally directed spending to help fund some of the cost of this building. And we had requested $4 million, which we assumed would be our portion. The portion that has been approved and moved on to my understanding is it's gone through one round, it will move to the second round, is only $1.5 million. Whenever I spoke with our representative to Gillibrand, he wanted to make sure that this project is still going forward. If it's going forward, then they will continue to try and push it through committee so that we get the funding. However, if it is not going forward, then they would like to pull our application so that others can have access to the funding. This funding has a very short time frame in which we would have to go forward with a project, and it would also not look favorable if we went ahead, got awarded the funds, and did not use it. So I think what I would like from this committee is some guidance on where we go with our application. Another response that I couldn't go back to the senator's office with is that we're not going to be able to go forward with a project if we don't get 100% of the asked funding, the $4 million, or we can pull our application at this point. So I would like to kind of leave that in the hands of this committee for us to figure out a path forward.
Well, we don't have the money to build it. We need to build it. We know that. It's nobody's fault what has happened since pandemic and how we have been hurt by our PFCs is only one part of what we've been hurt by. We know there are only 2 professional fire departments in Tompkins County, and one of those is at the airport, and they have to have a facility that meets FAA requirements. But we can't go ahead with it at this point. So the question you're asking, Shauna, and I think it's a proper one, what do we do with the $1.5 million? As hurtful as it is, sometimes you have to give it back. I just heard that, as an example, Marathon School District had been given from the state at $1.5 million to buy 3 new electric school buses. The state wants the schools to go to electric school buses. It was put to the voters, and the voters voted 240 to 70 against it. So they're having to give back the $1.5 million to the state because the voters did not approve it. There are circumstances that happen, as hurtful as they are. We like the grant money, but we don't want to get trapped. And we've already been out there pretty strongly for the airport with the terminal reconstruction, and we thought that the PFCs were going to come in stronger for that. They haven't so far. And again, no fault of airport or airport administration, but we have to be fiscally responsible as well. And I appreciate your comments, Roxanne. Greg.
Yeah, Mike, I agree with what you're saying. One question I have in seeking clarity on this is, it looks like we already spent some design money, but we don't have a design.
We've spent some, so they've been working on it, and they've been making slight adjustments as things change. So, as they're looking at the project, we're looking at possible funding. They're trying to make it as much AIP eligible as possible. CNS engineers is, keep looking at the project. So they've done quite a large portion of the design. They haven't fully completed the design. I mean, it's close. I mean, it could be ready momentarily, but again, they're knowing that they were trying to work within getting as much covered as we could from the FAA. And I appreciate everybody's support. I appreciate, reaching out for congressional direct spend, but it's just, 1.5 million still leaves us short.
Do we have the money set aside to finish the design? Because I feel like...
Yeah, that was in the 2021 grant project that was done, and that was... So that's already been covered. So that's been covered from the FAA, because that was when they were doing 100% grant, and then the remaining in that time came from our fund balance. So we've got that. The design
we
is
can
done.
get a full design and it's already covered and paid for.
Correct.
Okay, then I would say we should probably put us in the next round when we can get 4 million.
And we'll get brownie points for that too, I think.
That would be
Randy?
Yeah, I've always been amazed at how much money the federal government provides for the airport all around the country, not just here. And it's allowed our facilities to be nice, right, and to upgrade them consistently. But I agree that we should probably back away from this particular grant and go on from there.
And I'll keep the committee apprised too as we talk to the FAA and let them know. I mean, they've been great. They've been great to deal with and work with. They understand a lot of airports are going through this. It's not just us.
Deb, are you on with this?
Oh, yes, I am.
Okay. By the way, I didn't mention that Lee Shurtleff is excused today. Okay. Would it make sense to go right to airport discussion at this point? All right, why don't we move ahead to your report, Roxanne?
Or let me dig back around here. I'll make it quick because I know you've got a lot to cover today as well. Again, reminder, Airport Day, September 17th, 2023. Doing the Runway 5K again, East Hill Flying Club's delicious pancake breakfast. There's going to be a bunch of informational tables there. I believe HR is going to be setting up a table from the county, so that'll be fun. Crossroads the Clown, for all of you that like that. Second note, our Part 139 inspection, it was completed. We did not get our 4th consecutive year of 0 discrepancies. We had 1 discrepancy, but let me just say I'm still extremely proud of the team. It was a minor discrepancy, and it really shows how dedicated our staff is, considering years ago before Josh took this over, we would have 15, 18 sometimes discrepancies. So kudos to the staff. They do an amazing job every day, not just on the date of the inspection. The strategic plan, the RFP is out on BidNet. I've been getting some questions, so hopefully we'll get some great responses back to that and can review those. The final part of my official report here. Some of you may know this story, some of you may not, but Josh and his wife became foster parents to a little guy named Grayson just over 3 years ago. Grayson was 6 months old when they got him. But today at 1:30, next door, he's going to officially become a Nally. So the adoption is happening today.
That's terrific. Congratulations.
Yes. Thanks, Mike. And I sent out information on Teganic Aviation, kind of what Customs also does for the airport as far as for the community, for economic development. But I've also asked Mike Horan to join us today from Teganic Aviation. And Mike, if you want to come on up, and he's going to kind of run through a few things on general aviation and customs and Teganic and our relationship.
Mike, welcome. You're been a long-time, great partner for Tompkins County, and we're glad to have you here.
We're glad to be here as well. I'll try to talk fast. I know we're pressed for time. I'm not good at following an outline, but what I am good at doing is getting long-winded.
Go ahead and take what time you need.
Okay. So a little bit about Teganic. Those of you that don't know me, my name's Mike Horan. I'm the president of Teganic. I'm right underneath our owner, Roger Dennis. Roger started the company back in 1980. It was originally Chart Air. Him and two partners purchased it. Those two gentlemen have since retired. Roger retains full ownership of the company where it's going to remain. I'm only the second president of Teganic. Excuse me. What do? We do basically anything that's not airline on the airport is the easiest way to describe it. So any sort of aviation fuels, de-icing, aircraft maintenance and repair, avionics work, aircraft charter for people that charter. And then if you come in a private airplane, you're going to come to our facility. Outside of safety, what we're most proud of is we're what I like to call an employee-first company. Our employees come first. We continually do research with other FBOs that are of comparable size in upstate. I'm proud to say that we're the highest paying. We have the best benefit package for our employees. We pay 100% of it. Our employees have zero out-of-pocket costs for their benefits for themselves, and then we pay a significant portion for their families. It may not seem like a lot to some, but it really is a lot, and it's thousands of dollars a month for our employees, and we're happy to pay it. We think it's important to do that for all of our employees, from even the ramp workers all the way up to administration. We also do other benefits as well, sizable contributions to retirement and other funds for our employees. Our average tenure for employees is over 10 years. I'm actually been there for 17, and I'm the newest member of the senior leadership team. Everybody's got me beat by a long shot. A little bit about my background. Before I came to Teganic, I was with another local aviation company. I've worked on 6 different airports, smaller and much larger, the largest being down in the DFW Metroplex. As people keep going back to the COVID, and I can't state enough how the airport has changed and the industry has changed dramatically since COVID. The pilot shortage has been exacerbated by COVID with retirements. The federal government stopped training for a period of time for air traffic controllers. So now there's a huge backlog of that. New York Center, unfortunately, has half the controllers that they need this summer. So unfortunately, we're seeing those in delays. It's getting better. General aviation as a whole is a huge economic driver for airports, especially airports of Ithaca's size. You know, we've gone from 9 to 12 airline flights a day to 4, pumping 50,000 gallons a month to 28,000. Conversely, general aviation has done exactly the opposite since COVID. People who are able to afford to fly in their own airplanes or private airplanes or charter, that's up about 115%. And it has not slowed down. It's allowed us to, as part of our lease negotiations, as many of you recall, we're able to afford to pay more to be here. So our rent has gone up to the county a couple of $1,000s a month. We now pay 18 cents a gallon for fuel versus 6. And our fuel volumes are about double what they are pre-COVID. Some of the value-added things with general aviation as the industry has changed, unfortunately, are just expenses that you can't really capitalize on revenue-wise. Crews have expected FBOs to have courtesy cars available for them instead of having rental cars, so we stomach that expense. Another thing is customs. You know, smaller airports like Binghamton, Elmira, Ithaca, they look at customs as just a value-added service that they expect you to have. That's sort of a hard thing to do because it's a huge expense. But people look at airports like this, it's like, well, why does everybody else have this but you don't? And we're happy to have customs. I know it's expensive. I'll get into that in just a second of what other The common trend among the industry is general aviation is going to continue to increase. The amount of people that have learned how to fly is about 200% higher than it's been in the last couple of years. That's going to also help the pilot shortage. Our flight operations team has informed me that the resumes are finally starting to come back in again with pilots. So hopefully that'll also help the regional airlines get more pilots that they need. The regionals have gotten their act together a little bit with respect to pay and benefits for their employees, which quite honestly, they should have done a long time ago to retain the employees. So hopefully that continues to get better, and then it translates into more flights for Ithaca, which I think is what we all hope for. And it will happen. I'm like Roxanne, I think positive. It's going to happen. As far as customs go, there's been some question about the viability of that. It's definitely been off to a slower start than we all thought. You know, when this was just a concept back 2016, 17, it was looked at very differently than it is now. There was expectations that it would cash flow right away. COVID hit, and then, as you all know, basically air transportation came to a screeching halt and did so for a pretty lengthy period of time. But the other thing is with customs is it's more than just here's the expense on the budget, oh my God, there's no money coming in. The customs clearance fees that have been pretty low the last few years have gone up dramatically this year. The government's fiscal year, which goes for customs at least, is October to October. As of July 31st of this year, we at Ithaca were double what we were last year. We were double in clearances, we were more than double in fees, and we were 3 to 4 times as much as fuel into plane. And that's not taking into account the fact that we pay you triple the amount that we did last year. The other thing about customs that's really important is with supply chain shortages and things, we have a BorgWarner here, large manufacturer of car parts. They ship a lot of stuff to Mexico for final assembly. With the aircraft that come in to get those parts, it's just-in-time inventory, basically. In order for the Mexican airplanes or the foreign registered airplanes, if you will, to come in here, they have to make a fuel stop because they can't make it all the way to Mexico. One of the requirements for foreign registered airplanes to go from one U.S. city to another is to get what's called a permit to proceed from U.S. Customs. In order to get that permit to proceed, U.S. Customs has to physically be located at a facility. Doesn't mean that their customs officer has to be here at that particular time. This has to be a declared port of entry. So we've had about 35, I think, so far flights in the last 60 days from foreign registered airplanes that have requested those permit to proceed. There is a waiver, just to be transparent, there is a waiver process that they could get on a case-by-case basis if there was no customs here. I don't know how successful they would be to get those, especially with this amount of volume. I think it would call in a lot of question. The other thing, too, is just like with the TSA, is the foreign registered aircraft are randomly selected for searching, for drug enforcement, things like that. And I've seen it happen a couple of times here. So that is on the non-airline revenue, I believe, on the airport's budget. And it's been pretty significant. The amount of fuel we've pumped, the amount of landing fees that have been collected, that the county gets 85% of. The parking fees, things like that. I don't know the gross number off the top of my head, but I'm sure Roxanne can share that with you. The other thing with customs out of the, as of Roxanne's report, I believe she shared with you, is 29. I think we're at 35 operations now. All except 9 of those were directly related to Cornell University. It was either foreign students coming in or foreign speakers to speak with the college or high net worth families from other countries. There's one actually here today from Thailand to look at the college, to either donate money to the college or have their children go here, or they were alumni. So certainly there's a huge convenience, if you will, to Cornell to have customs here. The other thing is with the last point I'll make with customs is, you know, I don't think that a year from now will give us a good picture of where this is going to go. I think I think if there's a way for all of us to work together as partners to figure out, maybe a 3 to 5 year plan. We have a new airport marketing person at the airport. He and I have met several times to come up with marketing plans, and we've offered some financial support to the airport with respect to marketing, and really try to get economic development involved, Chamber of Commerce's, and do some marketing to Canada, places like that have the smaller airplanes of people that come in for tourism. We see it in Binghamton, we see it in Buffalo, we see it in Syracuse. Those people come in and they spend their money here. They spend their money in restaurants, they spend their money at hotels, they get rental cars, and all of that is money that goes into the community. It may not show on the airport's budget as a positive for customs, but in the bigger picture, it's bringing money into the community, and we can't lose sight of that. I think that's pretty much, did I cover everything?
Thank you for that discussion. Do we have questions?
We have Mike Sigler's hand. Mike
Okay, I have a hand on the screen. Mike Sigler.
Yeah, my question was, is there any kind of fees involved with customs? It sounded like the main beneficiaries really were kind of Cornell. I mean, obviously the whole community is a beneficiary of it, but the main use is Cornell, maybe Borg Warner. And I didn't know if when somebody lands, they have to pay some kind of fee for the facility, or
yeah.
I'm just trying to think of other revenue streams for it.
Yeah. Hi, Mike. What this airport is, it's called a pay-per-use port of entry. So there's a fee schedule that is negotiated between the airport, the FBO, and U.S. Customs, and it's directly based on the size and scope of the operation that's aircraft specific, and they pay a fee that's anywhere from the small GA airplane, $75 up to $500 or $600 per event. So every time an airplane comes in here to clear customs, the airport gets that revenue to offset the expense of having customs here.
Deborah.
Yeah, I had a couple of questions about the memo, but thank you for explaining, because I never could figure out what Taganic Aviation was all about. The memo that's in our packet says, by having customs on the field, it, among other things, increases the number of airport operations, landings, that increases the federal funding received. How does that work?
Yeah, so how federal funding is tied, and I'll defer to Roxanne on a lot of this, is how many operations you have at the airport. And by an operation, that's a takeoff and a landing. So it doesn't matter whether it's an airline flight, whether it's a student pilot doing touch and goes, whether it's Roxanne in her private jet coming in from her vacation. That's an operation.
Well, let's talk about that.
Where's my jet?
It's in Rogers Hangar.
Nice.
So the number of operations is directly dependent on how much federal funding an airport gets per year. So whether it's 30,000 operations, 60,000 operations, 100,000 operations, your federal funding that you're eligible to get has a lot to do with how many operations. The other thing, and one of the most important things, is with respect to those operations, is you have to have a certain number of operations to have a functioning control tower to get that funding. And I'm here to tell you, having been involved with airlines for 20 plus years, they don't like going to airports without control towers. So it behooves us all to, so it behooves us all to work together as partners to really figure out creative ways without costing a lot of money to increase the amount of operations at the airport, because we need that funding. The airport needs that funding, and we need that tower to stay here. And as air traffic controller shortage continues, one of the things they're looking at doing is shutting down the smaller, non-busy towers. Luckily, our airport's busy enough right now with general aviation and other things to keep that tower functioning, and we need to make sure that continues.
Okay, thank you. And then my other question was that the memo says it adds additional revenue to the fixed-based operator, Taganic Aviation. Does that impact the amount that you pay the airport?
Yeah, it absolutely does. So what that does is it increases the volume of fuel that we pump, and you get 18 cents a gallon for every gallon that we pump, so you would get that revenue. Every airplane that lands on this airport pays a landing fee that's done on a negotiated schedule that's approved by the airport director and the county. You guys get 85% of that. So for example, we've been averaging 3 flights a day for cargo right now. Not all of them are foreign registered airplanes. Some of them are US based airplanes. And it's about $800 to $900 a day, I believe. Roxanne can speak to how much it's gone up. I think we paid, the whole last year was $100,000 for the entire year. And I think in the first 6 months of this year, you've gotten $139,000, if I'm correct?
Correct.
For landing fees.
And I also want to look at, so Customs is a separate budgeting unit. So we get money directly from Customs for the flights cleared. The money that comes from Teganic goes into our operating budget. So we really, and I've actually got to sit down with Mike, because the more we're looking into this, look at separating that out. So we are applying what's coming from Teganic that's related to Customs, making sure we're getting the credit towards the Customs line item as well. Because it was really, it was all coming in together. It all comes in as one check. So we've got to work through the paperwork, and it's going to be additional work for Mike, and actually mostly for Mike, not as much for me, because I'll just get 2 checks instead of 1, but I'm good with that.
That's okay.
So it's just separating it between the 2 budgets so we can actually see directly what's from Customs and what's from General Aviation. But the General Aviation overall related to Customs has increased from Teganic to us as well. And everybody, if we continue to get these cargo flights in, that could mean continued, so like the last 60 days. So this was all post doing the budget, post plugging everything in, and not realizing how much, the cargo flights that are happening into Customs is really also impacting not only Teganic, allowing them to be an employer of choice, but also impacting the airport and what we're getting from that.
So if we change the accounting, we'll have a better sense of what we're getting for our investment?
Yeah.
Right, for Customs, yeah.
You do more of a cost accounting rather than just a general lump of here's the money coming from Teganic, here's for fuel, and here's your parking fees. We can pretty easily, it's a little more difficult going backwards, but going forward, if we account for it differently at our point of sale, which we can do, we can separate that out so you can see definitively X amount of into plane for fuel, X amount of landing fees, X amount of parking fees, things like that.
That would be really helpful.
So it'll be more than
For
what
sure.
I put in on the 5615, because it'll be separated so I can pull that into that accounting line item.
Part of the thing too with I forgot to mention with all of this is General Aviation is not anything scheduled, it's on demand. So it's really tough to budget. Back 5, 6, 7 years ago, I could tell you with a pretty high degree of accuracy what was going to happen at this airport and any airport around us, just because it's all pretty consistent. And I'm telling you, I go to work every day and it's not what I expected. It's like, oh, we have nothing going on today. And then you have 13 airplanes like yesterday. So it's very, very different. It's a really fun industry to be in, and if anybody wants to come and spend a day with me, you're more than welcome to. Or just see Teganic, see what we do as an airport.
Thank you. We got a couple more questions. Shauna, then Greg.
Yeah, I think the concern that I've had is that historically we received the numbers, and the numbers that we're looking at are not the numbers you're referring to, because we're seeing that it's $250,000 in the red, $500,000 in the red, and that's a lot of money. And unfortunately, I understand who's flying in. It's not fair to our taxpayers for them to have to pick up the deficit whenever your numbers aren't coming in and balancing a budget. It means that our taxpayers have to pay more. And so I would have a really hard time if the Customs Department, the Customs building, is at least not being self-sufficient. I understand it's the rich people, it's the high wealth people, it's Cornell that's coming in. Quite honestly, I don't feel comfortable passing that expense onto our taxpayers that are already struggling. So that's where I'm coming in. I would love to see the numbers. I hope they're different than what we've seen in the past.
Yeah, and like I said, it was definitely off to a slow start, but this year has definitely been better. I can't speak to what next year is going to be. Again, it's on demand, so it would just be educated guess at this point. So, but I think with separating out a lot of the other dollars that we get, I think it will give you a more clear picture and allow you to make a more informed decision as to whether the airport keeps Customs or separates from it.
I think many of us who have been on this legislature and voted for the airport renovation, I mean, there's kind of a feeling of like we're eating crow right now, because many of our constituents have come to us and said, it's great that we have a really nice airport, but I can't afford to fly out of it. And so right now, you know, we all want it to be successful, and we're willing to do, you know, probably what it takes to do that, but we can't stay in the red for long.
Greg?
Yeah, I have one question and then a comment. First question is, these cargo flights, is this a new thing for our airport, or have we always had cargo coming in and out?
Both.
Okay.
You've always had cargo come in and out. You haven't had a lot of international cargo come in and out, and never to this level.
Got it.
We've tried to talk to Borg to find out why all of a sudden they've had this rash of cargo, and they've said it's supply chain shortages, it's the car manufacturers, Chrysler specifically, being so far behind, which is why we just don't know how long it's going to last. You know, you can't say that the cargo is going to be 3 flights a day for the next 5 years, because we just don't know.
So the cargo is supporting the manufacturing in the region?
It is, yep.
Okay.
Yep.
You know, then my next comment, you know, to sort of tack on with Shauna's comment is, I do think we owe it to the operation, the airport, the process, to look at a period of time, you know, post, I hate to keep saying post-pandemic, but post-pandemic, right, and some sort of new reality, to really evaluate this and see the success. And the airport's like a chicken or the egg, right? It's kind of this circular, with the more flights you get, the more, you know, the lower the cost, you know, but you need these things to get the more flights. And it just seems like it's constantly a revolving issue. So I think, to my legislative colleagues, we really need to look at some sort of period of time to evaluate this by and agree on that, and not make any knee-jerk reactions in the short term, while still recognizing that it is, you know, it's costly, and other people are carrying that burden, and we look forward to the day where we're not having this conversation.
And I do too, because sometimes you know, like the chicken or the egg, I don't want to be a scrambled egg anymore. Let's come back together here. It's crazy. I will definitely put together more data that shows directly from Teganic what we're getting onto the custom side as well. That'll give a clearer picture. You know, and with the new company opening, the name just went out,
Menlo Micro.
I have reached out to Heather. We're going to try to get together with them. Are they going to be looking at, you know, cargo? And even if it's, you know, cargo, what, you know, flights are going to be looking at. So we're going to try to put together a tour with them as well. I just think that'll be beneficial.
Thank you.
Yep.
I think one of the biggest things, my last comment I'll make, and then I'll be quiet, is, you know, having been in the industry since the mid to late 90s, I always was of the mindset, and worked on every airport that was an enterprise unit. Airports were looked to be self-sufficient. And since the pandemic, I don't know really any airport that is an enterprise unit anymore, unfortunately, unless you're a hub city or a large city like Buffalo that has 60, 70 flights a day that can sustain an airport, because that's a huge part of the revenue. So to your point, everybody's in it to win it. We're one team. We got to work together, and we have to sort of figure out, you know, let's give it a little bit of time and see where the industry goes. And I don't think you can put a finite number on it. I think you got to do it on a case-by-case, you know, month or year-by-year basis and see how it goes, because we don't know what the industry is going to do a year from now or even 6 months from now. It could be totally different again, as we've seen for the last 3 years. So,
well, thank you so much for coming. And Roxanne and Josh, before I let you go, were we able to find out anything about the new FAA bill as to whether they increased the passenger facility charges or not?
Not.
They did not?
No.
So they're just staying the same in the bill?
Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
So any, you know, help on anybody that can work on that, that would be great too. We keep reaching out. I've shared that information. That would be a huge benefit. That would really help the debt service payment. That would help, you know, all the stuff that, and I fully see where Deb was coming from with her comment earlier. I get it. I understand it. I'm a numbers person. And one last comment. Oh,
go ahead.
Go ahead, keep going.
so this is related to also the airport is sponsoring the movie night in Stewart Park on Friday. Top Gun will be showing. Right? How?
Going to do a flyby in your jet?
Yeah, in my jet. I've got that running right now. Yeah, somebody's got to fly it.
Maverick is your co-pilot?
Yeah, yeah. So that's happening Friday at Stewart Park, I believe. The movie kicks off at 7:30. If it's a rain, I think they're hosting it at GIAC. And you could register to win a $250 travel voucher from the airport. Woohoo!
Thank you very much.
Thank you. And Randy,
Randy,
question.
Yes, I had a question, if there's an update on your marketing director, how that was going.
He's doing amazing. He's really a great person. He's sociable. He's gotten out to a lot of places. He's met with Mike. He's met with the airlines. He's going to meet with the cafe. We're working hard with the cafe. I've got a meeting hopefully next week with Amos and Nisha to try to keep them. I mean, it's a struggle. Everything's a struggle now in business, and not just the airport. So you can't just, it's around the community. So he's doing that. He's put together a great plan. You should start hearing some stuff. We're, doing some digital advertising. I'm not an advertising person, so he's working with a company on that to push out more social media. We've had great response on our social media posts. So it's huge. He's there. He's keeping up with stuff on the weekends. It's wonderful.
Thank you both, all three of you, very much.
Thank you, guys.
Let's just real quick take the minutes so we don't forget them. Someone want to move the minutes? Greg, seconded by Deb. Any discussion on the minutes? Those in favor? Any opposed? That's unanimous. Okay, I guess we're back to Norma, actually. Do we have more power forms?
Given the time, I don't know would it be reasonable to see what folks have questions about and then answer those and address those par forms, or do you want to go through all of them?
I think we should, if we don't do them now, I think we really need to review them at the next meeting. But that's a month away. Do you think that's still timely? What do you think, Lisa?
The next meeting will be after the budget presentation. So
I think we should go through them then. Does everyone agree?
Could we
Or
allow
do they
Jeff
feel
to?
differently?
Yeah, probably.
Can we allow Jeff to do his so that he can get
Yes.
going, please? Thank you.
Jeff, you want to come back up?
A lot of these we've been updated consistently. I only have one question on one of them, so.
Why don't you kind of move through them fairly quickly, and if someone wants to stop it, we'll stop it. Why don't you holler out the
I
title?
can read them out. So the first one that we went through already was Fall Creek Road, County Route 105 over Fall Creek Bridge, over Fall Creek. Second that we're on now is Falls Road Bridge over Taganic Creek.
Is that the new money that's coming from the state, or is that old money?
Falls Road Bridge is not funding. We're continuing to look for some outside funding sources to do that bridge. We keep pushing it forward and out in order to do that. That's at the head, above Taganic Falls, surrounded by state property.
Well, we've got that new bridge in the governor's grant, right?
We've been applying for funding. There's been several applications. We have not been successful to this point through federal funds for this specific structure, bridge, project.
It's another bridge.
Just a quick question. Is it possible in the future on things that are not buildings or, roads or intersections or culverts, things like that, to put a map or give some frame of reference for some parts of the area that we're not as familiar with? Is that a challenge in the system, or?
Yeah, I've started pulling that together. There is a mapping function that.
Okay.
But that has not been my, but yes.
At some point, yeah,
yes.
just a general comment when it's at the pleasure of the folks operating the system.
Okay. The next one is highway machinery, 5-year plan, it's equipment replacement.
I have a question on that. Cost of machinery's been going up quite a bit from what I'm hearing from a lot of people. This budget that lays out quite a few years, are you comfortable with it, do you think?
At this time, we are, yeah. We did some escalation through the years, what we anticipated, and we've been pretty accurate so far in holding steady. Yeah.
The next one is Midline Road Culvert. It's a Bridge New York project. Okay, then Podunk Road Bridge over to Gannett Creek. And then the road maintenance program.
I have a question on this one, too. You've been doing a lot of work out there, so I've been driving around and you did a lot of roads in the Newfield area. Are you feeling comfortable with this budget over time for what your needs are?
I feel like we are very comfortable with the funding that we're receiving. CHIPS is also another area of a large piece of funding that we also look forward to and advocate for every year to continue and possibly increase. But this piece has done great, made us be able to complete great strides in improving our overall, kind of our average quality index number of all of our roads, which we do. We travel our roads every year, we score them. This has given us the flexibility to do that. Next year, this has been a 15-year program. We're now getting into the final 5 years of the funding in this case. So this, going into 24, we're going to see actually an additional $600,000, which will just continue to help us to maintain the county road infrastructure.
Thank you.
Is that the last one?
That's all of yours, right?
Any other questions for Jeff on these?
One other, it's not in this order, but that's somewhat pertains, and that's the CDL testing site. That is one that is not budgeted, but we did create a PAR form for it, and Norma and Jeff can speak to the fact that they've been actively discussing this with the state DMV to find sites that would not require an investment, a capital investment.
I hope they have good luck. We tried that once.
So did the TC3 thing fall through? Okay, thank you.
We had another higher ed facility just recently reach out, so we're checking with them. And we're also checking with a public entity and locally, so we haven't given up.
Thank you for not giving up. All right, where do we go next?
Thank you.
Thank you, Jeff.
Okay. So those are the highway projects. We can go next to facilities. And Arel is on vacation, but I know Alan is joining us today on the Zoom.
Hello, Alan.
Hi, Mike.
So on the first on the PAR form listing is green facilities. We did have a conversation about that at the legislature meeting. This is phase 2 of green facilities. We're currently in phase 1. Phase 2 is slated at $15,500,000 and is currently not included for funding, but we wanted to bring this to your attention that it was requested by the department to continue with phase 2. It's not currently fit into our overall funding.
So it's not planned in the 2024 budget then?
At this point, no.
So I just wanted to clarify something. You have no estimated completion date here. In the body of your memo, you say that we're still committed to achieving net zero by 2030. And that is an extension of what was originally planned, which was for 2027.
Yes. And that was, however, that 2027 date was planned prior to the
COVID.
Well, prior to the doubling, the cost escalation for phase 1 and phase 2.
Okay, so if it's not included this time in a 5-year plan, next year, for example, if the situation changes, it could be put back in for some time in that 5-year period.
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Quick question. Is it just 2 phases? Sorry, 3 phases.
Yes, it was originally slated for.
Okay. And is the cost estimates on phase 2 and 3 increased?
Yes. And Terry Carroll is also here. I don't know, Terry, if you can speak directly to this or if you're aware of it.
Yeah, so I think I know Orel asked for kind of the remainder of what was originally set out for completing it. You know, the 3rd phase involves a big solar development that I don't know that we'll necessarily do anymore, so I think that could cut some of the costs back. But the 15.5 is what we're looking at to try and do a lot more of the geothermal that was originally anticipated to need to get off of natural gas for the most part. And then it also includes some solar projects and things. So the 3 phases as they were originally laid out have become a little bit fluid. Some of what was in phase 2 got pulled into phase 1, some got dropped back, and then there's probably some pieces of phase 3 that we'll no longer do.
And is any of that geothermal's in that 15.5, right?
Yeah, so the hope is to try and do some geothermal at possibly the Human Services Building and then up at Public Health and the Department of Emergency Response. And then phase 3, I think Orel mentioned this, at the legislature on Tuesday, looking at what we can do with kind of this downtown complex right here.
Thank you.
Thank you, Terry. Oh, I see.
Well, jump right in, Lisa, jump right in. You probably answered my question, so go right ahead.
Oh, no, I was moving on to the next, so.
So the phase 1, it might be good to see how those changes went from phase 2 to phase 1 and 1 back. So at some point to see what really happened. And one thing that always amazed me is in this phase 1, how the price almost doubled. So when I think about these projects going forward, whatever it is, I'm not comfortable with whatever the prices are. So we'll see where that goes.
I mean, just a quick note on that. Some of it changed because of the COVID supply chains, and so we're hoping that some of it will come back down. We're also hoping to try and recover some of that with some of the incentives. So the Inflation Reduction Act made possible some things that we didn't anticipate originally. So we're hopeful to try and recover some funding on there. But I think, the trouble is when you do some of these plans and then don't enact them for a couple of years, the prices that you originally set out versus what they actually come in can just vary, wildly. And I think Orel's fond of saying that things never get cheaper, right? So the longer and longer you wait, the more and more expensive things tend to get.
Orel is here and his hand is.
Morning, Orel.
Yes, good morning. I hadn't planned to attend, but we're getting ready to leave on vacation, so I do have a bit of time. So I did want to clarify a few things. The current phase 1, months ago, I did do an update earlier in the year on where we were, and in that I indicated those projects that were part of phase 2 that had been moved up. I think a few years ago when I did announce that we were planning to do the Green Facilities Project in 3 phases, that there may be projects in later phases that we may have to move up because either if systems started to deteriorate and we had to accelerate the replacement of those systems, that would happen. So of the current phase 1, the increase that we requested last fall, which is about 7 million, 70% of that was attributed to increase in scope, either projects that we had brought forward from phase 2 to phase 1, or projects in phase 1 that we expanded the scope, and notably is the public works facility. We had initially intended to do geothermal, but only on a portion of the building. But at the time, Terry was seeking grant funding that only if we did the entire facility could we be eligible for the funding. So we decided to make the entire building go on geothermal, which increased the scope, obviously. And as I said, we also moved other projects from phase 2 to phase 1. One of them was the library project. That building was renovated in '99, and we were cautious that those systems may not make it to phase 2, and that's true because we're actually going to be doing that project next month. So 30% of the increase for phase 1 was attributed to supply chain and inflation, but the majority, 70%, was really because of increase in scope. As far as phase 2, that project, if we were to get the funding, would be a 2-year project, which would start in 2024 through 2025. Phase 2 originally would have occurred 2026 and completed in the end of 2027.
Thank you, Aurel.
You're welcome.
Move on.
I think the next on the schedule is the facilities restoration project. These are ongoing contributions to maintain our facilities. The next is the Center of Government project, which has been included in the past. I have some updated figures in here for it. Yes.
Yeah, I was a little confused because I thought that the number you included in the capital plan as you presented it Tuesday night was different from 40 million. So what is it?
I did include 35. So the 5 million that is posted here live to date includes the cost of the land, the purchase of the buildings
Okay.
already, and then the design, which we had slated to be use of fund balance, and design was actually slated for 2022. It's now, 2023, likely to.
Quick question.
Yeah.
Just to clarify, so when you say we have 2 million slated out of fund balance for design, that was a resolution, or that was the acceptance of the capital plan by previous legislatures?
Yes, well, it was, I think that was last year's capital plan.
Yeah, it was last year's capital plan.
Right,
Yeah,
yeah.
okay. I just wanted to follow the timeline there.
I have clarity on that one as well. So under the design, the 2 million, that's planned, that was in 2023's budget, was the plan to spend that money?
Yeah, well, I'd have to look back. I believe it was in 2022's budget, but yeah, yes.
Yeah, it was 2022.
Okay, so prior year, it just hasn't happened yet, right?
Correct.
And you've got in this here, 35 million in next year's budget. Is that still planned for your capital budget for next year?
Yes, this project has been included in the capital budget. This may be the third year, so it's just been moving forward.
So that's probably going to change for your budget because you're not going to be able to build a building next year. Okay. All right, thank you.
Thank you.
I just remind that whenever we've talked about the design, we've talked about going to a bidding process, an RFP, and not just moving it to folks that we've dealt with before.
Definitely.
Thank you. Okay, next is the cold storage building. And this is a project that has been in the capital plan, and we've had to bid out multiple times because of the price of steel. So.
Where's that located?
Located on Bostwick Road, in proximity to the Public Works building, and it would be used by both facilities and soil and water.
Right.
So what was the original cost of that? Was that the 450?
Arel, could you speak to the?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, so this is a project that we were looking at pre-COVID, working with Soil and Water. It's a 6,000 square foot facility, split down the middle, so they get 3,000, we get 3,000 square feet. It would be located just above the employee parking lot. You could access it from Culver Road, but also from the backside of the Public Works facility. The project is designed. We've received bids in the past. They were high, especially during COVID. So we've waited. The price has dropped a little bit, not enough to allow us to move forward with the project as budgeted previously. So that's why we're requesting the additional funding. We've also done all the value engineering that we can to the project. But at this point, from the proposals that we're getting, we would need additional funding to allow it to move forward. So for the last 4 years, Soil and Water has been using these storage containers. They called Averdes in the back highway to store a lot of their equipment and materials. And we've been using, we used to store everything at the old library site until it was sold in, I think, 2017. And we really don't have anywhere to store, any extra materials, equipment and such. We also have some storage containers similar to Soil and Water to do that. But this facility is really what we've needed since our building was built at the Public Works facility back in 2003. We've wanted to have a storage building. We had included back in those years, Mike may remember, we had an alternate to do a storage facility back then. The alternate bid was higher than our budget could afford. So since 2003, we've been hoping to have a storage facility. And we are getting a small portion of grant funding that Soil and Water has applied for. It's about $60,000 that would go towards this project.
Thank you, Arel.
I am familiar with the need for this project because I served on the Soil and Water District Board for 3 years. What I am asking about, however, is that you've got expenses, you've got an additional $220,000 cost, but there's no matching revenue allocation. Where's that going to come from?
That will likely be the local share. Yeah, I don't think I'll have to work with Arel to find that out because I noticed that too, yeah. If there's any coming from state.
Arel, so by cold storage, you mean it's just a non-heated space? Is that what that means? Okay.
You're correct.
I think that's the last 4 facilities. Earlier on in the packet, we'd skipped over to get to highway, the backup dispatch center, which, again, this is by way of an update because this was paid for in 2023 and expected to be completed this year and into next year. There was a slight delays in this project, which is a partnership with Cornell due to some town planning, which it's now moving forward. So, but the expense will not show in the 2024 capital budget. And then the handouts, we've factored in the design costs for the public safety building project at I don't have it in front of me, a date in the future.
You had completion 12/31/2025.
Okay.
And this is just an add-on, right? It's not a new building?
This is, so the live to date, which shows 4.75 million, those are the projects, those are the upgrades or maintenance that are in process now to address some of the ongoing needs and concerns in the public safety building. The 6 million, which we put here, is a placeholder for design work and engineering for a new facility.
Okay, and on my copy, where it says revenue, it says we're having trouble loading the report, so.
Yes, mine too.
Mine too. That is all local. That would all 100% be taxpayer funded.
Thank you.
And it would not be planned for 2024. It's just a placeholder.
Okay.
Okay,
That
thank
your
you.
question? Yeah.
Another state mandate, unfunded.
Then I think the last remaining project is Green Fleet, which was included as a handout, and which we have recently updated to include the recent determination that we would be cost saving to go with enterprise for fleet management and a leasing arrangement for a large number of our fleet vehicles. Terry's here to, if there are questions on the Green Fleet project.
Yeah, I just appreciate that the almost $1 million of it is going to be sale of equipment. And I assume we can do that because we have this management company that.
Yes, we have been doing it without the management company, but this is the centralizing of the fleet first through Terry's efforts and now through Enterprise is going to, I think, produce a lot of efficiencies for us and savings and so forth.
Okay, anything else on the PARs? Golfer, I can't think of any comments here. Let's go to transportation planning. And folks, as I warned on Tuesday night, we're going to have to go long today. Frank?
Real simple. It's normal paperwork for New York State Department of Transportation that have a capital lease agreement with TCAT and GATBOB.
You're welcome to sit down if you want.
Yeah, you can.
That microphone is a little difficult.
Yeah, Frank, please sit down on one of the desks. The microphone is not working. Thank you.
Normal paperwork, New York State Department of Transportation, the county's a direct recipient of the money, needs and leases it to TCAT and GATBOB. Simple paperwork, that's just a requirement.
What exactly are we leasing?
The buses. So the county owns the buses and all the equipment, anything capital.
To buy the bus.
Right, because the feds pay 80% of it and then 10% from the state. So a lease agreement is required. So just requesting that the county legislators approve the lease agreement with TCAT and GATBOB.
Someone want to move the resolution? Well, let's do the first one with TCAT. That's 11826. Deb's moving it. Is there a second? Seconded by Greg. Discussion on this. Those in favor? That's unanimous. Now let's take the second one, which is 11827 for GATBOB. Deb moves it. Greg seconds. Discussion? All in favor? That's unanimous. Anything else, Frank?
Nothing else.
All right. What are we going to do with the Key Bank building? Deborah.
Well, there's a member-filed resolution to move the center of government issue to the full legislature to decide whether we want to move forward with planning a facility on that corner, which would involve deconstruction, demolition, whatever, of the Key Bank building and the Wiggins building. And I think if the legislature does not wish to move forward with those plans, we ought to seriously consider selling those buildings. Because just watching what's happened, the deterioration of the Red House, the further deterioration of the dental building, because they were unoccupied and there's no one on site to say the roof's leaking or, you know, the tile's falling off the wall. It's very difficult. We're not in a position really to maintain an empty building. So that would be the choice as I see it.
Randy?
I just have a question. Is this the one that says revised we're talking about now?
No, it's on your, it's in your agenda.
Looks that's a separate one, okay.
No, there is a revised plan because the original resolution called for a request for quote, and we were advised by admin that it should be a request for qualifications. So there's a slight change. There is a revised one.
So that's when we're talking about then?
Yeah.
Okay, I just wanted to make sure. Okay.
Gotcha, okay. So that, yes, so frankly, you know, Deborah's right. If the member-filed resolution passes, then it's basically a foregone conclusion that we're going to have to destroy the Key Bank building right away.
Well, unless there are not 8 people that want to move forward. I don't know.
Well, I'm just saying the way it would work. But I want to come back to the question, is that what we want to do? Is that what this committee wants to recommend? Greg?
I see no use for any of our vacant downtown facilities unless we have a plan to move forward with the center of government. I don't think repurposing them is cost effective or efficient. I think it takes way too much to upfit and retrofit a building than it does to reconstruct one in an energy efficient, sustainable way. So I would not be in favor of entertaining any sort of salvage, repurpose of those buildings for county use other than the land that sits underneath them.
Randy?
Yeah, I don't think it's wise for us to rehab those buildings. I agree with that. And we can't technically knock them down unless we have a plan going forward. So we're stuck between a rock and a hard place right, as to what to do. I like the change here, and you mentioned earlier that, you know, if we put this out, we're going to request qualifications from numerous entities, not necessarily the one that has been used in the past. I think that's a good idea. I actually like the idea of, and also you put in here, which is really important, is the resolve before that, is we need to determine which departments are going to go in there, because that will determine the design, right? So I think that's really important. And once we get to that point, I personally like the idea of really seeing in presentations from those people who may be qualified, what their ideas, what the design would look like to fit whatever those needs are. So I'm fine with this going forward. So.
Deborah.
Yeah, I want to follow up a little bit on doing the request for qualifications and actually perhaps having some sort of process to audition the proposals that we get, because I think it's really important. I remember several years ago, somebody brought forward a drawing of this very modern building that just would look crappy, sitting in the middle of the downtown area and adjacent to the historic buildings that we have. So I'm really hoping that if we go forward with this, we will build something that resonates with the surrounding buildings, particularly the courthouse.
This is a once-in-a-100-year event, probably, right? Not quite like a flood, but...
Hopefully more positive.
Right. And I think that, it's a community building. It belongs to the people. And all the input that they can have, or at least observe, I think would be important, so.
From my standpoint, I absolutely don't agree with your point, Deb, that we might as well sell these buildings if we're not going to build a building right away. I think that a $40 million project deserves a lot more consideration than to have a member-filed resolution to push through on the committee. There is nothing wrong with Tompkins County preserving the area of its campus. And our campus is here on both 300 and 400 block of Tioga Street. So although the resolution, if we're going to move forward with it, I don't have a problem with the resolution. I don't think we're ready for it at this point. Greg?
Mike, I support your thought process of, we have the right to preserve our footprint and space and things like that. But gauging some of the conversation or sense of my colleagues around maybe the challenges either that would be faced by our municipal partners if we were to deconstruct or do something with these buildings without a real plan, there doesn't seem to be a real appetite to take on that level of interaction with the city. So that being said, I think we need to have a plan to preserve them. We can move this resolution to the legislature, see what the will of the legislature is. That timeline can continue to be moved, but at least we have something that we can point to where we can, have some action items to deconstruct those two parcels.
Shauna.
I think we've heard time and time again, numerous reports from administration that we are having some space issues for our employees, that at some point very, very soon that we're going to have to start leasing space, renting space in order to house all of the departments. We've been talking about this center of government for easily 4 years, and I know that we had a new group of legislators join almost 2 years ago, and we've continued to talk about it. I think that at this point there has to be some action, because even if we were to decide tomorrow that we're ready to move forward and build the center of government, it's still going to take 2, 3, 4 years to actually happen and for these buildings to be built. So I feel like the longer that we sit on our hands and do nothing, the more scrutiny we're going to receive from our public, rightfully so. Our buildings that we've obtained over the past few years we're not maintaining them. We're not doing a great job with that because we don't know what we're doing. We don't know where we're going with these buildings. And so they're just sitting there. And I think we've heard loud and clear from the community, from Fall Creek, that they're an eyesore, that they're a nuisance. And so we do need to take swift action. And I hope that there is the will of this committee to move it forward, because I think at this point it should be the choice of 14 members of the legislature.
Let me respond, Shauna. There's nothing we could have done with the Key Bank building because of the tenant in there until now. There is nothing we can do about taking down the legal building because of the tenants that are in there now. So, and we've already authorized more than a year ago the deconstruction of the dental building. And we're about to take up 408 North Tioga. I know there are folks that are impatient, but please don't say it's because we have sat on our hands. we bought it when there was an opportune time to buy the properties. And we've also sold off Sears Street because the neighbors were really wanted that done. So please don't say that that we've been not moving this thing to a point where we can make a decision. We haven't had to because we aren't able to do that. Randy.
As a new legislator, I'm surprised how slow this has moved. So I see why you're impatient with this. And that would start with the Baker Building and the Red House. I just think that's moved way too slow. And when I look at this, and that's why the second resolved here is really important to me, is determining what the needs are for the various departments. I have different opinions on that, and I'm sure that's going to take us a while to figure that one out, right? So that's why we need to move this forward so that we can have those discussions about these departments, because it's going to take some time to figure that out. In keeping these buildings that we have, any of the buildings really, in the current condition they're in, and to rehab them, it does not make economic sense to me. So,
I think Greg next, then Deb.
Two things. I just want to qualify. Our facility staff has been doing a great job managing to the level of, I think, the direction of what the legislature and this committee has provided them. So I don't want anybody watching to think our comments around, not knowing what we're doing or anything like that is a result of our facilities team. They do an excellent job at that. It's just we've, as a legislature, have been in limbo trying to make a decision on which way to go with this. So I just wanted to say that that's just an important distinction. We appreciate the work that they've done to preserve it to the level in which we've authorized them to preserve it or confuse them on how to preserve it. I also think, just because we have tenants in something doesn't mean we can't do anything. This type of resolution could have been passed a year ago or 2 years ago. And we would have just included in a timeline those as action items. So I hear the comment about we've not sat on our hands, but I also think that to say that others are impatient because we want to see this move forward, we just have a different expectation of which we should be moving at creating a resolution around this and providing some clarity for our staff to move forward. Because ultimately this building, to Randy's point, is a public building. It's meant to serve the public, and us serving our staff is critical in ensuring that they can best serve our constituents. So, really there's a lot of pieces moving forward here. I don't think anybody's impatient. The process has been glacial. Randy, I think that's something we've both learned through this, but I think that this is a good step. This still allows this committee to weigh in on several aspects of this building, but just really gives a clear direction and sense of the legislature to the staff to keep moving forward and keep engaging in this conversation, because right now we just we have to make one decision so that many others can follow.
Deborah.
Further to Greg's comments, it's true, we couldn't knock the buildings down while there were tenants in them. But a project of this scope requires planning. We should have been planning. We should be planning. It's not good planning to wait until the building is empty and starts deteriorating with no one in it, to start a process that's going to take a good 2 years.
So we are about to make a discussion that has been delayed now 5 months regarding the improvements to the public safety building. So I hope the committee members here will be as impatient to move those forward as they are with this resolution today.
Act on, and I think we'll be there.
We'll discuss it.
The full legislation said, or the full legislator said we would wait 4 months and have a, basically a listening session from the community, and that we've done that. It's been very helpful. But it's also delayed anything that we can weigh projects like this. We just went through the PAR forms, and there were questions about money being spent on everything from the airport to the highways and everything else. There's a lot more projects out there than there is money. And there are certain folks have their favorite projects. I have no question about that they do. And they will fight for the particular projects that they want to see funded, as opposed to ones we may actually need more. But that's what happens. And that's what happens when you have an elected board.
We have lots of needs, and we need to prioritize them because we don't have resources to meet all of them immediately.
Amen to that. All right, so you want to move your resolution? Somebody?
I'll move it.
Deborah has moved a member-filed resolution, and it's been seconded by Greg. Further discussion? All those in favor? Those opposed? 3-1, that the motion passes, or the resolution passes. So I would very much like to think about scheduling a joint meeting with the Public Safety Committee. I think we got a draft of the of Travis's report out of the listening committee for the public safety building, and I think the way to proceed with that would be to have a joint meeting. And I think we should have a meeting when we can invite perhaps the members or the public people who were part of that committee to come in as well so they can hear us. But we need to talk about where we move with this project. There may be people who are just as impatient about moving this forward as they are about the center of government building, the $40 million project. I doubt it because public safety buildings, jails, are something we have to do, not something we would like to do. And so that's one of the problems. So I just kind of wanted to get a feeling from you folks. Shall we try to schedule this in September? Should we schedule it? Now, it's interesting, looking at both our committee and the Public Safety Committee meet the same day each month. So we could possibly meet with them, or they could meet with us. And I'm just throwing that out as one possibility, what we could do. I think we would need a minimum of an hour, so we might have to go a little longer when one meeting's the other. Maybe we need even more than that. The other possibility is to schedule a special meeting between the committees.
I'm certainly amenable to a joint meeting. But it's the best forum for us to have a free and fair exchange of ideas.
I'm sorry, Deborah, I didn't hear all of that.
It's the best forum for us to have a free and fair exchange of ideas about.
Special meeting?
Yeah.
Okay. How about the others? What do you feel?
Yeah, all for it.
Go for a special meeting, okay. Just remember, in September, we have all the EBC meetings starting too. But maybe if it was earlier, maybe
Could
like
do
the
it towards
first.
the end of August.
Do you want to, we have Katrina here and we do have some dates.
We can send out a doodle poll, but
That would be a great idea. And we don't have budget meetings till after the 19th.
That's what I'm saying, if it was earlier in
they
September.
start the 20th.
The 20th, okay, yeah.
All right, so that's the way we'd like to go, and I'll check that out with Rich, make sure that's the way his committee wants to do it, and let's see what we can put together. Is there other things that need to, Dwight Mingle is going to give us a real brief thing on transportation. I'm sorry.
We have
We
two.
didn't vote, did we?
We have two things not on the agenda that were revised.
408. I'm sorry. Yes, we all participated in executive session. We know the feeling of the legislature with respect to 408. We have, at the request of our chair, 2 resolutions. I've offered a slightly revised one. And can we get someone to move that the 408 North Tioga Street is no longer needed for public use? Deborah's moved that. Randy is second. Discussion about that. Those in favor? That's unanimous. I'd like to, on the other resolution, the change that I suggested was that when we go to get someone to help negotiate this sale for us, that we not say that's an option for a ground lease, but it would be a ground lease. And that would be a protection for the county if we did that. And so that's why I had suggested the revision.
I'm uncertain as to what we would accomplish by holding on to that ground lease with that building that's probably going to outlive the 14th generation of all of us, given the city's position.
I would say that we would be able to have more of the land owned by the county, continued to be owned by the county, only subject to whatever easements necessary to drive in and whatever parking easement is necessary.
Well, if I may, I have a couple of questions about that. The first one being that we've had lots of discussions in committee and among the legislators at large about whether or not the space that's left there, once you take out the Sears Street frontage and the Red House, is sufficient to be effectively used for county purposes. And I don't know what y'all think about that.
Much smaller building, right?
Yeah. And then the other thing is, I have heard you say, Mike, that you would really like to see a competition among potential purchasers so that we could maximize our return.
I didn't say that. That's Randy's position, and I think it's probably a reasonable thing to do.
I'm not entirely sure that retaining the title to the underlying property and having a ground lease attached to the sale of the building is a structure that's going to maximize our return.
Well, I don't know how much real property work that you've done and how much you've seen around Ithaca where there are ground leases that Cornell University, for example, has. It does not affect the marketability from my experience.
I know when I moved here, we looked at a house with a ground lease and didn't buy it because of the ground lease, but that's just me.
Greg.
Yeah, I'd like to move an amendment to this, to the revised one we have on our desk here, keeping the yellow highlighted strikeout and continue to strike out subject to a ground lease, ending at that comma, so that the sentence would read that the Tompkins County Legislature authorizes the county administrator to negotiate the sale of the site at 408 Tioga Street at fair market value to include the procurement of the services of a realtor on such terms and conditions as the county administrator may approve in his or her reasonable discretion and upon consultation with the county attorney.
I'm not sure we're on the, did we put it on the floor yet?
No, I don't think we did.
So we can't do a revision. You'd like to see it revised with that language.
Yeah, sorry, I thought I apologize. I thought we moved this.
Well, let's move it. We like to move it.
Wait, did we move, we voted on the no longer needed for public use?
Right, that's the one,
But we did not move this one yet?
Right.
That's
Apologies for
that's
the,
okay. I'll move it.
I would second it if it's acceptable.
What are you moving, Deb?
I'm moving the original as it appears on my desk because it needs to be,
Not the revised version.
this is the only one I see.
On the agenda revised.
The only one I see is this one with the yellow stripe.
Okay, all right, so you're moving that one.
Right.
Is there a second? Seconded by Greg.
So can I address your proposed? I think if we left it the way it was originally, giving us the option of considering a transfer of the property subject to a ground lease, we would be able to entertain a wider spectrum of offers. So if I were offering an amendment to this, I would just not strike out that yellow language. And that way, we can see what the market wants to pay for this building and how the ground lease provision might impact the return on our investment. Does that make sense?
If you're moving that, I would second
So I
it.
would move it without the strikeout. So it would read, negotiate the sale of the site at 408 Tioga Street at fair market value with an option of just transferring the structure subject to a ground lease. That way we can look at all the offers. We can either sell it outright or we can keep a ground lease.
I would second that.
And I would just comment on that, that if you do offer it that way, nobody is going to accept it. And nobody's going to buy it with a ground lease.
Which suggests that maybe a ground lease isn't the best idea.
No, if you give them the option, buy it outright or have a ground lease, nobody's going to want the ground lease.
Yes.
Randy?
I don't like the idea of the ground lease anyways. It's just such a small parcel. And that building, as we know, is an historic district, and is going to outlive all of us.
Yes, it
right?
is.
I mean, it's not going anywhere. So I just don't see the value of, unless it burns down, right, or something like that.
And then we'll get blamed.
Right. So I just don't see that. In my prior life, I've sold hundreds of properties for Citizen Savings Bank because they did a bad job of managing their business. And we did it through realtors, we did it through live auctions, we did sealed bids. And none of those had a ground lease in them except for one hotel down in South Carolina, and nobody would touch it. So we end up giving up that ground lease and finally selling it for pennies on the dollar. So I just don't think it's worth it. I would like to add one thing that I would say to include the procurement services of a realtor or an auctioneer. So if you put so I really believe auctioneering is maybe an option for us. Picking a realtor is going to be painful. It's going to take a long time. I'm really worried that, we're going to be November and administration has all these responsibilities going forward, the budgeting.
And we'll get one good snowfall and the roof will collapse.
Yeah, all these other responsibilities that you have and we've put on you. So I'd like that as an option, so.
I would not be in favor of that. I've seen too many auctions of real property where the prices came in much too low. Sealed bids are
minimum prices in place.
a different issue.
You can put very clear restrictions on that if you do that. You can have a minimum price. You can have closing dates defined. You can have pre-qualifications to funding. You can do a lot of things so that the people that are bidding are already pre-qualified to do it. I think a realtor is fine too, because you have people interested in it. But I'm just worried this is going to take too long, and I don't want to see us hang on to this any longer. So.
Well, you're going to have to move that as an amendment, I guess, if that's what you want.
I'd like to move that as we add an option for administration to procurement of services, a realtor or an auctioneer.
Is there a second for that?
Oh, wait. You want to go?
No, we need a second. We're okay.
I'll second that for.
All right, been moved and seconded. Is there discussion on that? Yeah, additional discussion.
The more options we have, the better.
All those in favor? And I vote no. So anyway, we have the original resolution with Randy's amendment, no strikeout on the table.
Okay, we have Deborah's motion on the table at this point.
That's right.
Okay.
With the amendment.
With Randy's amendment,
We have the original resolution, not the revised resolution, the original resolution with no strikeout as amended by Randy's resolution, motion. All those in favor? And I'm against. All right, what else do we need to talk about today?
Well, Dwight's been waiting so patiently.
Dwight is going to talk a little bit about the history of transportation.
In 5 minutes, with 5 images.
You go ahead, Dwight. Lights down.
How about that? That worked. Isn't that nice? And go to slideshow. Okay. Been around a long time. I'm getting ready to retire in like 13 days. And I look through, we have on a website an archive of historic transportation images. And I just want to tell you that I am surprised to see myself in something I'm calling historic, let alone some others here. So let me start. This was the inaugural run of the bus to Dryden. The TomTran, first rural TomTran route. You will see that Mike Lane was mayor of the village of Dryden. And you have county legislators who you very likely know the name. Some rooms and so forth are named after them. I really want to call out to Frank Liguori was my planning commissioner, and there was such a great consensus of the need to do something for transportation because our transportation services were extraordinarily limited at this time. There was the City of Ithaca system, Ithaca Transit. Cornell had their on-campus bus service. There was Swartout and Ferris was running a one route from the village of Lansing. And the city at that time, we contracted with them to run a route to the hospital. And that was public transportation at this time. And we were very fortunate to receive a Appalachian Regional Commission grant from the county to launch a county program that wasn't just public transit. It included carpooling, van pooling, a program to use school buses for transporting TC3 students to and from the campus. That didn't go anywhere because we were unable to get a state law passed. And basically taking an integrated approach of looking at all of the possible services that we could have. We also had a jitney program, which was operated from Tioga and Cortland to Ithaca by Charlie Chapman from Tioga Transport. So we had this big, we had a big model to try to implement and to implement it in a couple years. And so this was the first step for the county was to get a rural transit route going, and it was from Ithaca to Dryden. And believe it or not, we got there were quite a few doubters that this was going to work. From the state, people from state DOT said rural transit does not work as a statement at that time. And I saw that there were articles in the paper suggesting that this was going to be a exercise in desire, but not reality. So I love this picture because obviously the date doesn't reflect the image. We started TomTran on August 24th, 1982, but we got our new buses, we got 2 buses in the winter, and that's the image being shown. So this was the first day that our new buses were operating. Cornell was the operator of our rural transit service. And it worked and was a big surprise that it actually did work. And it became the impetus to then consider other rural transit routes.
That's in front of Woolworths.
That's in front of Woolworths, right. I should have clarified that. Now the library. This image is showing a reality of Bill Wendt. William Wendt is right in the center. And he had the idea, he was the director of transportation up at Cornell. And after we had a horrific December day in which the temperature dropped 43 degrees in an hour or so, and it gelled our buses, which means that the diesel had not been treated for wintertime, and we had a lot of buses fail, and it was difficult to get service out. Bill sent a little note around to the city, to the county, saying, shouldn't we try to get a transit facility? And that was the note, saying Kent State did it. Let's try to get a transit facility. So what you see here is a groundbreaking with many of the participants, but also the funders who assisted with that process. So left to right, Marty Luster, Assemblyman Judy Willis, the first director of Gadabout, Senator D'Amato, affectionately known as Senator Pothole because he went everywhere to fix capital items that he was able to. Myself, Ben Nichols, who is mayor, Bernie Carpenter, who was the acting superintendent of Public Works, Department of Public Works for the city, or Streets and Facilities for the city, who reinvented Ithaca Transit in the 70s. Bill Wendt. And then there's a gentleman from David Putz from NISDOT, and behind him is Leonard Braun, who's he's the head of Region 2 of the Federal Transit Administration, and a close, I call it ally of Senator D'Amato. And Leonard Braun got us 60% of the funding. And then there's Jay Morley from Cornell and Dan Winch. I'm going to talk about Dan Winch. Dan Winch was the county rep from Newfield. He worked at Cornell in the ag school on project management. When the consensus developed that Cornell, the city, and the county were going to build a facility, he took on the responsibility to chair the design and construction committee of the three parties, which met weekly on Thursday it was either 10 in the morning at noon, and he told us, we will be making decisions every week. And we are going to get this project going from hiring the architect to having this groundbreaking in 6 months.
Right, we're going a little long.
Yes, so that happened. A great leader in this. I love this because this is how it showed. This was E pluribus unum, one out of many, a precursor to the idea of TCAT. And the last image is showing the design on the TCAT buses. And this was a revolutionary design. From left to right, Nancy Oltz, who at this time was the superintendent. We were working in TCAT. She came from Ithaca Transit. She was like the superintendent of there after Bernie retired, and became head of operations at a TCAT. Bill Gray from the city. Rod Gehring, who was our first general manager who actually had experience outside of Tompkins County. In fact, he was a general manager, assistant general manager at several transit systems in Michigan. Bill Stebbins from Cornell, Bill Mobbs from the county, and myself. And we're showing off this new wild design which influenced the design of the Seneca Street stop, because it has a curve in it. And that curve was controversial, but we got it built. So with that, I will conclude this and just say that I very much, well, it came back. I very much have enjoyed my 4+ decades of working for the county, and it's been an exceptional ride. So thank you very much.
White, thank you for that. You know, you've been here 4 decades, and your service has been terrific, and we're going to miss you. So don't stay a stranger. Come and see us when we do something wrong. Tell us. And you have a wonderful history, and I think it's nice that you've documented it.
Thank you.
Anything else, folks? Let's adjourn.